Mei and Fei are our fellow disciples from the school of Shen Mountain Fist and also the winner of the previous YouTube popularity vote. You might have seen Wales killing Beth and Oghma in the arena easily with Fei and Mei, but just how worthy is Fei and Mei actually? Let us find out together. This will be the format for today's video. We'll look at the stats, skills, and exclusive weapon of the hero. We'll also be playtesting the hero to see the strengths and weaknesses in terms of attack animation. We'll then do some arena analysis, and in case you guys are wondering why there are no PvE or Colosseum content, the reasons are very simple. Because Mei and Fei don't really have a place in the Colosseum because melee isn't really the meta in Colosseum. As for PvE, their party buff as well as their stats does not really warrant a discussion because they are not usually used for any specific purposes or any specific niche in terms of PvE content, so we're skipping that out in today's video. And finally, we will end off the video with some final thoughts and opinions on my end. Knight met both Mei and Fei in the school of Shen City Fist and underwent training with the two of them. They are both very gifted in terms of martial arts and were accomplished martial artists even before joining the school. Eventually, one of them will master the technique of the Shen Mountain Fist and join the Knight's party as the legendary hero to save the world. Mei and Fei is ranked 26 in terms of attack, 14 in terms of defense, 10 in terms of crit hit chance, and 28 in terms of HP. The party buff for the two heroes are melee defense plus up to 54%, and the chain skill Hard Blow lands a powerful blow which inflicts 270% DPS damage and reduces light type resistance by 20% for 5 seconds. Their special ability is able to increase their crit hit chance when they are hit by the enemies. Based on the stats distribution and skill layout, Mei and Fei is actually like a tanky melee warrior that is able to take some melee hits from their party buff as well as dish back decent enough damage based on their increased crit hit chance. However, in comparison to unique units, their stats is rather mediocre, but they do have a place in the arena meta. Their EX weapon, Pride of Fighter, increases crit hit chance, defense, HP, and weapon skill regen speed. It also increases their normal attack range while allowing them to regenerate 100% of damage inflicted by Double Palm Strike. So Double Palm Strike is a randomly proc attack within their normal attack, so I'll display in attack animation portion later. Their weapon skill is Ultimate Ice Flame Bomb, which deals 180% DPS while having a decently low cooldown of 8.5 seconds. As we can see from the stats, the combination of their weapon crit hit chance as well as special ability will give them an insanely high crit hit chance. And when combined with their high attack intervals, this means that they will be able to unleash some hurt on the enemies despite their average stats. I will say that the EX weapon is a must in order for you to use Mei or Fei inside the arena, simply because their normal attack without their EX weapon has a really short range and you will most likely be unable to touch anyone given that short range, so you really need that increased attack range as well as some heal from the weapon in order for them to sustain in the arena. Their normal attack launches consecutive punch when you hold down the button. When they execute their attacks, they will not be able to move, so you got to actually do some attack cancelling in order to do attacks while moving. The attacks are unable to pass through terrains but is able to pass through walls. So just now, like I mentioned, without the EX weapon, the attack range will be really short, so it's not recommended for you to use the hero if you do not have their exclusive weapon. Their weapon skill allows them to throw down a spirit bomb that is able to push back the enemies when the attack comes into contact with them. So it usually takes around 2 to 3 weapon skills in order to crowd control your enemy, and as I mentioned just now, the healing from the weapon skill actually comes from this random proc of the Double Palm Fist. So it's not a constant heal on every attack, but a randomly generated one. Another cool thing about Mei and Fei is that their chain skill will make them jump at the enemy and cause a single punch. Now moving on to the arena analysis. So first of all, like I mentioned earlier, we won't be talking about Colosseum in today's video simply because melee really isn't a thing in Colosseum, and Mei and Fei honestly do not have a place in Colosseum currently. However, in Arena, they do have a very specific niche, and that is to be a melee team counter, or specifically the dark melee team counter against Beth and Oghma. Since I do not personally use Mei and Fei in Arena, I do not have any Arena footages of using them in the Arena, but I will just briefly explain why they actually fit the niche of actually countering Beth and Oghma's melee team. So first of all is the elemental counter, as Mei and Fei is actually light unit while Oghma and Beth is actually dark unit. Another thing to take note of is usually Beth is paired with Oghma in order to make Beth more sustainable in the arena, and as well as to allow Oghma to benefit from Beth's melee damage. And usually the team with Beth is always gonna be a melee team, so the party buff coming from Mei and Fei is gonna be a big help to your whole team, right? And the next thing to take note of is usually Oghma will out-sustain you, right, in the arena, simply because he's so damn tank and he reflects a lot of damage if you attempt to burst him down, right? So Mei and Fei being able to deal multiple damage instances while healing up when attacking Oghma is definitely a plus when fighting against Oghma. So against the matchup with Beth, right, because Beth usually is very hyper offensive, so Beth actually needs to come very close in order to deal a lot of damage to the enemy. So this is where Mei and Fei is really good, because Mei and Fei can just stand on the spot and punch Beth, and since the heal coming from Mei and Fei's skill is from the damage dealt, so being elemental advantage against Beth means they're able to do more damage, and they're actually able to sustain in the fight against Beth specifically. With all the combination of the various factors that I mentioned, the party buff, the element, as well as the weapon ability, this makes Mei and Fei a really good counter against Beth teams, right, specifically, and also to a certain extent melee teams. However, do take note that Mei and Fei do have a lot of weaknesses in the arena. So number one weakness is definitely because of their stats. Rare units don't usually have good stats compared to unique heroes. So in a 1v1 setting against other heroes other than Beth and Oghma, Mei and Fei will have a very hard time. Another thing to take note of is because they are very close quarter warriors, so they actually have to get very close to the opponent in order to deal some damage. So if your opponent chooses to play around the weapon skill, this will make Mei and Fei very prone to chain combos simply because they have to get very close to the enemy. And the last major weakness that I want to talk about is actually with regards to their party buff. So their party buff is melee defense buff, which could be a double-edged sword. So it's really good now because there's a lot of Beths, a lot of Eugenes, a lot of melee teams running around. However, in your arena matchups, if you were to be encountering more range units, these are things where you can't control, then this party buff could be rendered relatively useless, because melee defense similar to ALF doesn't really do much against range teams such as the melee Bianca combo, or even meeting Bari within the arena. And as spoken earlier, I won't be talking too much on the PvE side of things, simply because the melee defense buff is really too niche for the PvE content. Unless you are fighting in dungeons or rifts with very heavily melee focused enemies, then this buff can actually play a role in the team. Other than that, I won't see why you are building Mei and Fei for PvE contents, simply because they honestly have no place in the content due to their stats as well as their niche party buff. Below are some reasons why you should invest in Mei and Fei in your main team lineup. In conclusion, Mei and Fei in my honest opinion, will actually rank somewhere in high A tier for PvP content, simply because I feel that they are very niche, but they do have a fighting chance if they meet the correct enemies or correct team compositions. However, other than countering the melee teams, they are actually very weak against all the other teams in the arena, so they might not be that good. The only reason why I'm giving them high A is simply because of the abundance of Beth and Oghma teams running around, which definitely gives them the place in the arena most of the time. They are definitely either somewhere between the B tier or the A tier for PvE content, because they're honestly not that good for PvE stuff. So don't put them in your Colossal team, don't put them in your main team for PvE content. Another thing to take note of is, because from the videos you can see the whales actually owning people with their Mei and Fei. However, most of the whales will have way more stats than their opponent. So do take note, under a very equal matchup, your Mei and Fei will technically be weaker than your opponent simply off the stats difference. So the only reason why you see the whales actually performing very well with Mei and Fei is also because they have a very overwhelming stat advantage over their opponent, or maybe they have a very strong max limit break weapon. So this really depends on scenario and case by case basis. And how worthy is Mei and Fei actually? In conclusion, they are currently decently good in terms of PvP content because of the atmosphere and the hero pool in existence. Simply because the current arena meta is very melee favored, the melee defense coming from this hero is a really good countermeasure against the abundance of melee units running around. However, this is a very niche role and it will change with time and will change with new units introduction. Therefore, if you really have a hard time dealing with Beth, Marina, Future Princess, Oghma, or just melee teams in general, then Mei and Fei is definitely a worthy investment to have on your team if you want to counter them. However, if you want a very general hero that is able to deal with multiple situations, or rather deal with other contents other than arena, then Mei and Fei is definitely not the pick for you. So let me know about what you think of Mei and Fei in the comment section down below. I really love to hear from you guys, and thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell in order to see more videos from Zebo Gaming. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!